Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Before we welcome everybody else, let's first of all hear today's proverb from Turkana.
Yes. Aburo niepi ngesi eriri emun.
You're really getting tempted to say abiro.
Actually, I have to just stop myself from saying abiro because that is what would come naturally to me. But aburo, and I'm thinking now, that one, is it past, present, or future tense? Niepi ngesi eriri emun. Translation: when the leopard comes to you, the club at your neighbor's house won't drive him off.
When the leopard comes to you, the club at your neighbor's house won't drive him off. Fimbo ya mbali haimui nyoka. Right. A very good morning to those who are joining us now on KTN Home. You'll be with us for the 1 hour until the top of the hour, joining those who've been tuned in on SpiceFM and following the conversation online, SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Now, for the next 1 hour, we are going to talk about crime scenes, crime scene investigation. CSI Nairobi premieres on SpiceFM. Play the sick tune. All right? Heading this conversation is Chief Inspector, a forensics detective from the Forensics Crime Scene Investigations at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. His name is Chief Inspector Nguka. When we shared the promo for Chief Inspector Nguka's visit, everybody told me, good luck with pronouncing his first name. Let me spell his first name, then he will pronounce it himself. A-R, what is it? Just spell it. Because I don't even know the spelling now, I've lost it.
You've lost the spelling?
Yes. Anyway, A-R-P-H-A-X-A-D. A-R-P-H-A-X-A-D. Chief Inspector Nguka, what's your first name?
My first name is Arphaxad Nguka Oange.
It's a Greek name, this one.
It's a Christian name. First Chronicles, verse 1:18.
Yes.
Arphaxad was the grandson of Noah. So it's a Christian name.
Arphaxad Nguka.
Yes.
Our second guest in this crime scene investigation show is Sarah Nyakio. She's from the Independent Medical Legal Unit. She's an Assistant Programs Officer in Communication and Advocacy. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to have a conversation about the importance of crime scene management. And I think we first of all need to understand what's a crime scene. We may assume, but it's important to get it from the expert. CI Nguka, what is a crime scene?
Okay, I'll try and use the simplest of terms. A crime scene is a location. A crime scene is a location, an object, or a body where an act or omission that amounts to an offense has occurred, and you're most likely to get evidence. That is a crime scene. So it may be a place, a location, it may be an object, or a human body. And the issue of an act or omission that amounts to an offense has occurred. For example, this room it cannot be a crime scene because whatever we're doing right now does not relate to any offense, any commission.
However, should there be a complaint thereafter that there's something that could have happened, it then becomes a crime scene.
CSI Nairobi is in.
Bas. Okay. Yes, City.
No, just go on. I will ask what I want to ask you.
This will come in later.
I'll ask it later.
Okay. Yes. So many times we see detectives who go into a crime scene and then it's cordoned off with a tape, or police officers just standing and saying, all right, so don't approach here. Police are doing some work, they're investigating. And this is now when crime scene investigators come in. Who are these and what's the expertise of a forensics investigator such as yourself?
Pardon, I didn't get your last question.
It's the people who come into a crime scene to start investigations. What kind of expertise do they need to have?
Okay. Now, crime scene investigations, it starts with the first responders. Now, the first responders means and includes the neighbors, the first police officer at the scene of crime, and also the final bit is the expert. Now, forensic expert, for you to be a crime scene investigator, you have to be a forensic expert. You have to be groomed and to be grounded in thorough forensics training. It takes time, and of course you have to be a police officer because the act on police mandates the DCI to carry out forensic analysis. So you have to be a police officer. But then crimes investigation it needs stakeholders. So when the wananchi out there are aware, the first responders, they'll be able to also help in preserving the crime scene, because there's no need for an expert to get on the scene and get evidence that will not help. Yeah. Maybe it was not preserved properly, maybe it was raining, and whoever was there. No, evidence is transit in nature. It means it after some time it will disappear. So it's a partnership. So crime scene investigations will work better when the wananchi out there know what they're supposed to do. And if they help in this, we'll always have proper crime scene investigations. We'll always have watertight cases with evidence that is that you cannot penetrate, and we'll have an effective criminal justice system.
Do we find that there is tampering with some of these scenes that then does not allow this last thing you have said to happen, that you can have watertight cases, that you can have proper presentation of evidence, and that you would essentially see the expansion of justice? Do we find that there's a lot of tampering of these cases or mismanagement of these scenes that then stops the latter from happening?
Okay, what I can say is that you can never have a perfect situation, and every case has its own merits. And tampering of evidence may occur out of your conscience, or you may not be, you may not know whatever you're doing is tampering. But in numerous cases, from our studies and from what we've heard, it is possible to tamper evidence, and so that is why crime scene investigation is all about, to prevent the tampering of evidence in crime scenes.
But do we see that is rampant in the country?
Not just in the country. Those are facts that you're trying to put in. Remember the O.J. Simpson case? Yeah. It was in the US. What happened?
The glove didn't fit.
Sure.
Sarah, as the independent medical legal unit, there's a lot of work in advocacy that you've done in terms of, police reforms and all, and making sure that there's some secure route to justice. What role do you play in looking at what we are discussing today, crime scene and crime scene management?
First of all, I would like to start with that IMLU is a dispenser of one of the dispensers of justice, and one of the interests that made us go this route on crime scene investigations and crime scene management for a fact is that we've somehow lost a lot of cases, and we've also seen the public tampering with crime scenes. We've also seen our own police officers tampering with cases, and I would like to refer to what Nguka said, our CSI, that we looked at different cases, and we looked at, for example, the Willie Kimani case, where we heard the public was so angry and it went and burnt the police station, where Willie was in the police station. Recently, we saw the Kenjakoma brothers, where the public was angry and they burnt the police car. And we also looked at, for example, the case of Ivy Wangeshi, who was a student at Moi University, and we saw a police officer holding the axe that the student was hacked with. And even recently, we saw the issue on the accident in Siaya, the issue of the petrol tank that overturned, and a lot of our the public members were killed in the accident. And we saw there was a problem, and we needed to create awareness. So for us, one is to create awareness on the importance of securing a crime scene and why evidence is important, because we are almost having our 30th birthday very soon, and we've realized that the public is not aware that if we preserve the crime scene, we help in executing the justice, and tampering of crime scenes equals to miscarriage of justice. Then the next thing that we want to inform the public, it's the cooperation in terms of crime scene management. We've seen instances where the public has had to be dispersed using tear gases, where we've now had to have police brutality in that issue. So for us, it's public awareness. We also want to have cooperation during crime scene management. And the third and the most important one is to just remind our police officers, because during the campaign, I've visited 10 counties where we have been meeting county commanders. And I remember one county commander saying that the first officer at a crime scene determines the direction that the case takes. So that is our mandate, and that is what we hope to achieve with this campaign as for now.
Who would you say participates the most in the mismanagement of these scenes? Because, I mean, clearly, you've given so many examples of areas where, things have not gone right, right? And then the miscarriage of justice then happens as a result of that.
Yeah.
So who would you say participates here the most?
I would not like to pick one person, but for me, it's the public for sure, because the public members are the first responders in all the crime scenes. And the next people are people from GAO, the assistant chiefs, the chiefs, and thirdly, the police officers. So for me, it's the public, because they're the first people who come on all crime scenes at the first people. Yeah.
Or the perpetrators, like in the case of lynching. And then someone dies. We saw one case recently where a suspect is out of custody and then ends up somewhere, ends up being lynched, but the public dies. So in that case, how would you preserve this crime scene? Nguka.
After lynching,
Yeah.
before lynching.
In this whole, so
process.
the person has been lynched, the person has died. So this now, I assume it becomes a crime scene. Now, what evidence would you be looking out for in this particular case?
Okay. This it's a case of lynching. That means that there are so many people in that scene. So the first procedure there is safety. If you're a first responder or you are a police officer, the first issue to look at is your own safety and the safety of the people who are doing the lynching there, and also the victim. So you have to weigh out and see how are you going to assist, how are you going to get in. If you're alone, you have to call for backup, and then you have to ensure that safety. Now, because this situation is that it's lynching going on, and people have their tempers on, and they're pressured up. So you need to use your soft skills now. You need to now to look for a way of addressing them and telling them to stop, or if it is dead, you have to tell them that this is now a crime scene. You're supposed to be off. Whatever you're doing, the act in itself, taking justice into your own hands is wrong. So you have to convince them, and at most times the public are always aware of this. And when you approach them in a soft tone and in a convincing way, they'll always give way. So you have to now to cordon the scene, and you have to get them off the scene. You get them off the scene, and then as you're getting them off, you have to be looking out for possible witnesses. You have to ensure that I saw this guy here. These are witness, or these are suspects. As you're cordoning off, and you have your notebook. You cordon off. Now, in cases like this, you have to look at the victim. Now, it's only a doctor who will say that so-and-so is dead. But then there are scenarios where if you look at the victim, you'll be able to tell, okay, there's no way you can save his life. When you find that maybe someone has decomposed, highly decomposed, you'll know that, okay, I cannot save his life. Or maybe as is maybe highly disfigured, or maybe the head has been maybe smashed up. You'll know that definitely that right now I cannot save life. Now, from there, you cannot save his life now. You have to document the scene. You do a documentation, and then you do your search. You do a crime scene search. You look for evidence. Then you can have your team. And as usual, when you go inside the crime scene, you always follow a safe pathway. you do not approach the scene from where there was the most activities, because definitely you are going to introduce other matters. Remember that crime scene is based on the Lockhart principle that every touch leaves a trace. So you have to look for a safe pathway so that you do not also become part of the offense that is going on there. Then you'll have to call the medics, but then you had called them, they'll be over there. They too, when they're coming to remove the body, they too will have to follow a safe pathway. And most of the medics, like the Red Cross, our stakeholders, always say that they're always aware of this. So, and they always cooperate. Then you had begun your documentation, so the body has to be documented of the evidence as it was. It is done in situ. So you have to document. Then after you're done, you do your analysis, and then you do a final walkthrough to see if everything is order. Then maybe there'll be a senior officer or the owner of the house. You release back the scene to them, probably with their notes, and you tell them this is the situation that I got here. There was a victim, there's this evidence, there's these exhibits that we took, and you're finally done with the scene. You want it back over to whoever is responsible.
Is this all done always with the thought in mind that this information could essentially prosecute or justify someone? As in, do you go into a crime? And because I'm linking this directly to what Sarah has said, is that, we're looking at issues of the miscarriage of justice sometimes. So when you're entering into a situation like this, are you always thinking that whatever I find here, or how I manage this, or how I carry out this situation could essentially help someone in the future? Or is it just to document it and keep it on the back burner for future use?
Okay. I really didn't get your question right, but if I got it right, you see, forensic science is all about the facts and the truth, and it doesn't matter whatever evidence you have is going to help the prosecution or the defense. We handle the facts as they are. We do our analysis as they are. And we are on the side of the court. So whenever we are doing our forensic investigations, at the back of our mind is that we are trying to help the court.
Okay.
The evidence is for the court, and it's for whoever wants to get the information right.
Okay.
So it does not matter whether at that particular time, whatever you got, the fingerprints will end up being the guy who's in the prosecution or not. That is the fingerprint that we have. So that is what we'll go further to the lab we'll give it further to the lab for analysis.
When you talk about forensics, and rightfully as you put it, you're talking about science. Now, the crime that has been, and this is what I was thinking about when I first wanted to ask the question, I was thinking of a very modern crime, cybercrime. And then I was thinking about fraud. These are crimes that are committed, and the emanation of that particular crime is the mind. Cyber, it's in cyberspace. And I was thinking, with all these things, since there's a human being involved, then it stands to reason that the biggest crime scene is our minds, really, our brains. Because everything that we're talking about and the things that we are discussing, that's where they start. And that's why I think the issue of communication to me sounds important, because for you to reduce the elements of crime, or for you to be able to ensure that, as you say correctly, crime scenes are not tampered with, it's the mind that needs to be approached more than anything else.
Okay. I look at it at a legal perspective. Crime has elements. There's the mens rea and there's the actors rea. So it will be in your mind, but before you execute it, it's not a crime. So you have to execute it first. So as long as you can keep it inside your mind, you can have it in your thought process, well and good. But the moment you take an act and you decide and you press the key, enter, in cybercrime, now that is now when it turns into something else.
So what you're saying, Mr. Nguka, is that I can kill you in my mind as much as I like.
As long as you
so long as I
don't.
don't take a knife and head in your direction, it is okay.
No one can accuse you of anything.
It's in your mind. Of course, that is why we are human. We have the ability to think and to gauge whatever we're about to do, is it right or wrong?
This is CSI Nairobi having a conversation about importance of crime scene management with Chief Inspector of Police Arphaxad Nguka, forensics detective with the DCI, and Sarah Nyakio, Assistant Program Officer, Communication and Advocacy at Independent Medical Legal Unit. So, Sia Nguka, as we were going to the break, we were talking about, the importance of understanding, first of all, the crime scene. Now, the thing that both you and Sarah have said is mostly the first person to arrive at the scene of crime is going to be the first responder. Many times it's members of the public. And you will find that many times when you're responding so that you can see how to help. You're not going there so that you can tamper with evidence. It's how to help. You found somebody, maybe they've been injured, and you're trying to get them to a health facility, to get them to safety, to move them from there. So you're doing all these things. The first thing in your mind is how to save the person or the victim. Now, what is it that we need to do as we're doing all these things to preserve evidence so that when Chief Inspector Nguka and the team arrive, they can find something that can be used? What should the public know in various cases?
Okay, the public should always know that crime scenes, as first responders, we should always get that involved when it involves a matter of life and death, when there are people that need to be salvaged or to be helped or to be rescued. Now, in that instance, members of the public are advised to go and secure that life. But in most cases, we find that these are normal situations where there's no one who's at risk, there's no one who's at danger. They should just keep off the crime scenes. They just keep off. They help. They pull out the crowds. Because at times the crime scenes themselves may be dangerous to them. Most crime scenes are active scenes. They're still on it. So they have to get out from the crime scene. They get out of the crime scene. They call the police. They try to identify the perpetrators. At times they can even take photos, but from a safe distance. You can take your notes. You can document, because I've seen situations where photographs taken by witnesses, because he is now possibly a witness, and definitely the whoever will be investigating this case will will be coming back looking for witnesses. So they can help in the investigation by that. They encourage others to get out from the scene as far as possible from harm. They can take their notes. They can record. Maybe it's a motor vehicle that was there. To record the number plate. Take any information that could help in the case and put it down. Members of the public can do that. Now, in terms of if in the event that someone is hurt, is involved, is safety. Now, when they are rescuing the person, as I said earlier, they should look for the safe pathway. Safe pathway meaning that they can look at the crime scene and they can tell that, okay, the guys who came, who did this, they followed this route. So they can follow a clear and a safe pathway to get the person out. And they can document that. So whoever will come, the officer will come, they'll just tell him that we came, we got inside the crime scene, and we were helping the victim, and we followed this route, but we've not walked into the other route, we've not touched anything. And then they should not touch any exhibit. They should not touch any exhibit. They should leave everything as it is. They should not use the facilities there, the washrooms, the dustbin, and all that. And they should not eat. So the best advice I can give is that let them just
keep off as much as you can.
Call the police.
I'd like to ask. I mean, what you're saying is fundamental. It's even simple and straightforward. But it's the very thing that people do not do.
Yeah.
Even when someone is killed, it's like people have to go and look and see.
You have to witness for yourself.
Yes, and get as close as possible. You almost get the impression they actually want to touch this person to determine if this person actually passed away or not. Now, IMLU, you are in communication.
Yeah.
This is where now partnerships
Yeah.
with the police service comes in.
Yeah.
Do you people have plans? Do you have,
Programs.
yes, that ensure that you're constantly talking to the public about some of these things that they need to know, and using mechanisms that exist through the Ngao, through MCAs? You know, these fellows, we don't talk about them very often. Very important people here. Do you have such programs?
Yeah, and that's why we are here today, because this is a campaign that we are doing countrywide, and the hashtag is to hifadhi crime scene. And one,
The HIFA?
to hifadhi crime scene, to hifadhi crime scene.
Hifadhi means?
To hifadhi, let's secure the crime scene. Yeah. Yeah. So, and one of the strategies we are using, of course, is the media advocacy, which is why we are here today. The other thing the other strategy we are doing is that we are using information, education, communication materials. And I have one of it here. This is a brochure that we've printed and we are distributing and disseminating in the whole country. I did not carry the posters, but we also using the posters to just inform the public that we need to hifadhi the crime scene. And one of the strategies, I've heard you've talked about MCAs, and one of the strategies that we are using, our country is a very religious country, and everything the pastor says, they're gonna listen. So one of the strategies we are using is we are working with religious institutions, for example, NCCK, CJPC, SUPChem, to just inform the congregations on the importance of crime scene management. So far we've reached 10 counties, and we are working with the county commanders. We are working with the Ngao in the different counties, and we hope to get to the 47 counties. But those are just one of the steps we are using to actually create awareness and just inform the public that actually securing a crime scene is a key in the criminal justice system. Yeah.
I mean, now, talking about partnerships, which clearly is, I mean, now you're talking to the media. You mentioned of the three people or the three groups that you're concerned about, the general public, and then chiefs and the Ngaos, and then the police. What strategic partnerships do you have with these two, Ngaos and chiefs and the police, that now to Hadidi the crime scene as we're looking towards the future? What partnerships?
Hifadhi,
Because
not Hadidi.
Huh?
Hifadhi.
Hifadhi. Sorry, help me. Hifadhi the crime scene. What? Because it seems to me as if it would be extremely important then, because you have those who would essentially mismanage it, but then you have those who are protecting it as well. What would you be looking for with partnerships with those two?
The police and the
Ngaos and chiefs, as you had mentioned.
And the Ngaos and chiefs. The police, for sure, we are working with the police station level police officers, because they are the first responders when a crime scene happens. Apart from the public, they're the people who land there before the CSI come in. So we are ensuring that every police officers get that brochure first. And we are also working on it needs a whole lot of resources, but we are also working with the police training schools, the Kiganjos, the DCI school in South Sea, the GSU training in, for example, at All Soaps. We are working with the police training schools just to remind the officers that this is what happens, because in most cases, the police officers have been the people who are tampering with the crime scenes, and somehow they've forgotten. So we are working to ensure that all the police officers get that brochure, and working with the police training schools to ensure that this message is reminded to them oftenly that on the importance of crime scene management. I think on the Ngaos and at IMLU, we are very strategic with working with community policing, and people in community policing are the people who are also closest to the Ngaos. So we are working with the community policing committees and the Ngaos to just remind them when they go to their community barazas, just remind the public that what crime scene is about, the importance of securing a crime scene, and how tampering with the crime scene can actually change the face of a case. So that is what we are doing, working with the police training schools and working with the communities around community policing, the Nyumba Kumi initiatives, and then Ngaos together to ensure they eneza the message to the public.
To everybody.
Yeah.
Nguka, I think one thing very important, as we started off, you said that a crime scene can be a place, an object, or a person. And if we're looking at, very many cases whereby an individual is the crime scene, whether they're dead or alive, right? A lot of cases then that could essentially lead to justice is when we're looking at when an individual has been violated. What would you say to, we know the advice that we've heard from the police surgeon. We heard was when they say, take care of yourself before you go home and take a shower, for example, or you treat yourself. Somebody's been violated today. You who is coming from a forensics point of view, what would you advise somebody, for example, who's been raped, somebody who's been clobbered over the head, for example? What would you say? Don't seek self-treatment. Don't touch anything so that we can see you first. How would you go about that? What advice would you give today? Because it's still a thing.
It's a very, very important question. Most cases that, particularly of the sexual offences, defilements and rapes, the victims always, I don't know how I can put it, they victimize themselves. They wash up. They don't want to get reminded of the experience.
Sure.
They burn the clothes and all that. At the best forensic point of view is that they should not do that. They should report. They should not clean themselves. They should not. If they have to remove the clothes, then they have to pack them properly. Maybe if the clothes were torn. They have to pack them properly, and they have to wrap themselves with the new clothes. But all these have to be submitted. They have to accompany the victim to the hospital. So when seeking medical attention, they have to be as they were. When they wash up or they clean themselves, they are destroying evidence, and they are giving the perpetrator a chance to walk away scot-free.
What if you have a life-threatening injury? What do you do in that case? When the first thing would, make sense to seek medical attention, first aid. And here we are saying, because essentially, if you have you are hurt or you're injured, if you get treatment, you are tampering with the scene. You are.
Okay.
Whether it's good or not.
I'd said this.
Yeah.
The first protocol of crime scene is safety. Safety first. Your safety is much more important. You have to look at your safety first. And whoever is looking into your safety, he will tamper, but he'll not tamper with all the evidence because he has that in mind.
Okay.
But if you don't have that in mind, you'll end up cleaning yourself thoroughly, burning up the clothes and doing that. And you see, in most cases, you will never get 100% of the evidence. You may get 80, 70. So we are trying to salvage. So if you are hurt, your hand was hurt, you put a bandage on it. Doesn't mean that you may use maybe improviser clothing for bandage.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that you're going to wash your hands out and do that. Try and stop the bleeding. Call the police. Look for medical attention. Try to stabilize. They'll come over to you and they will do the right thing. They will know that this case. They'll help preserve the evidence in you. Yes.
But sometimes even when you think about medical care or medical attention, in my mind, it augments that evidence chain because the fact that you're treating it will indicate to you the severity of it and the details that ordinarily you cannot actually see. And I also think that even if you clean it up, I'm talking about somebody who's been clobbered, has been in an accident, has been injured, is it really possible to obliterate and remove all the evidence?
But then it's not possible. But then it's an accident. I really fail to wonder how will you go about as a first responder going to remove the clothes of the victim. It's always left for the medics. It's always left for the medics. And the medics, they know. They have their own procedures. They know how to preserve the clothing properly. They know how to treat the person, and they know how to. In fact, medics at times, most of the time, will also be part of the witnesses. You see, so it's always very rare to find that first responders, unless they're doing something else, maybe they have their own issues, but they'll always leave. They're supposed to leave the victim as he is, apart from trying to get him from the bad situation to a better situation. Then, if you're not a medic, you don't know what to do with the victim. So let the medics do their job.
There have been talks, and I know I'm not asking this from the political angle. I'm asking this from the reality angle. There have been talk of better equipping, for example, our DCI and our police across the country so that you're able to deal with the evidence. Now, we are talking about, for example, removing clothes. So here we are looking at the other small pieces of evidence, let's say high hair fiber or such. Are police adequately facilitated to capture all the evidence that they can at a crime scene? Going beyond just taking the pictures, but going and getting the deeper evidence that could be there.
They are.
Across the country?
They are. We
uniformly?
Now, what you'll get in the scene will depend on the first responder, as he has aptly placed it. The direction of the case will be determined by the first person at the scene of crime. But I can tell you with confidence, we have CSI stations all over the country. We have CSI Mombasa, we have CSI Eldoret, CSI Busia, CSI Bungoma, CSI Nakuru, CSI Marsabit, CSI Mandera. As long as you, as a first responder, you cordon the scene and leave the rest to us.
In terms of infrastructure and facility and capacity, then, because this could dovetail directly from the saying that mismanagement, then, do you have, can you also speak with the same confidence and say that the service has all that it needs to make sure that from beginning to end of these processes, we will not have any issues?
What I can say is that what we have is adequate.
Okay.
We now have the state-of-the-art forensic lab at the DC headquarters. We have so many, quite a number of forensic disciplines like ballistics, fingerprints analysis, document examinations. We have what is adequate to keep the country going. Now, what we need to do is, as what my colleague, my sister is saying here, that we need to create awareness. That you see, I'm sure most members of the public who tamper with the crime scenes are oblivious of the fact that these are things that can be done in Kenya. It's no longer a CSI Miami thing. These are things that Kenyans can do. So if the members of the public are made aware that, okay, in as much as we watch this in the movies, if we leave the scene as it is, and we call the police and the CSI get in, it will be handled. If you, for example, phones. People nowadays, in as much as if they steal phones, they know that they'll be tracked. People tend to avoid, because it has gotten into the system of Kenyans that, okay, in as much as I'm doing this, someone somewhere will do his magic, will throw his magic dust and will get me. So in the same way, Kenyans need to know that we have really developed the field of crime scene investigation and forensics at large. That you just leave crime scenes alone. Let the criminals do their business, and the police will be there for them.
You know, something that when you talk about the movies that one sees about CSI, apart from the forensic scientists like yourself, among them they have social scientists, psychologists, sociologists. Do we have them in this country to help augment this work?
They're there.
Sorry.
What I can say that they're there, but I don't have that data and I've not delved much into that. But I know they're there.
One of our very good listeners on this show, Zachary, is in Nakuru, and he has a question that he'd like to ask. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning, Zachary.
Oh, you have invited very, very knowledgeable people there. And I really very much watch so many documentaries on YouTube about how these guys solve crimes, yeah? Like now there is one series called Dead Bodies Talk, yeah? That the dead bodies can tell stories, yeah? And they can defend themselves. And if you ask that guy, he can tell you that there's that race. But now the question that I wanted to particularly ask that lady, that is the advocacy lady, yeah? Is this, yeah?
Sarah.
Most people normally guard their money. They say that the money is the most valuable thing to us. And I mostly tell people that I meet with, do you guys take care of your ID cards? Do you guys take care of your passport, yeah? Documents that specifically define you, and they are hard documents that actually identify you. And then I go asking them, do you really guard these documents? Because someone can pick them and likely put you in a place of a crime by dropping them there. Yeah? And eventually, when the forensics experts come, they will actually pick such things. That guy will tell you that. And for you to be able to actually defend yourself, oh, I was not there, to give an alibi that is really convincing, it's very hard. It's
so
very
what,
hard.
what question then do you want to ask Sarah?
Sarah, let me ask her, do you actually tell people that money is not the most valuable thing that you carry around?
Okay.
It is your physical documents. And if they don't, can she assure us through now the program that she will start telling people to take their physical documents very, very seriously and guard them seriously?
Okay.
That's a very interesting question, but I think it still boils down to keep away from the crime scene, because if you're in the crime scene, that's when you lose your ID, and your ID is found by the CSI in the crime scene. So just keep away from the crime scene. If you're not helping, if you're not needed there, keep away, because that's when you lose your ID, you lose something as important. It's found there, and people think you're actually the criminal. Yes.
The question I think he's asking from the point of someone has stolen your ID card and used it in a crime and deliberately left it there to throw off Nguka and his team. When they land there, they say, oh, so in fact, if or even the first responders, if it's local police, in fact, he left his ID here. So we are going to look for Eric, and we are arraigned him tomorrow and charge him with murder. That's what we always hear. So what advice would you give people, Nguka?
Okay, his question was a little bit off in that maybe your documentation might be left there. So I'm really trying to figure this out, because it happens. Maybe you might be near scene and you lose your documents or your phones. But what I like to tell members of public is that forensic investigations are systematic, they are analytical, and they follow a given procedure. It's not just guesswork where you do picky ponky and you have your guy. That just because you've picked someone's ID and you conclude that okay, someone was murdered here, and then you conclude okay, he's the murderer. No. Facts have to corroborate, and you have to piece together the forensic pieces that you're looking for. The pieces must match and they must fit, and it must be beyond reasonable doubt that so and so did this. Okay, in as far as his question is that then it means that you were in the scene of crime. Definitely, we'll get to you. You'll be questioned, and then we'll do our own investigations and try to see if placing you there, were you just there by chance? What is the relationship that you have? But we look into whatever is in the scene, because crime scene, we are not like, as we like to put it, we're not garbage collectors. We pick what has evidential value, what will help the case. You don't just pick everything that is the crime scene and then you table it up that, okay, we have the evidence. No. It must relate, it must be important, and it must help the case.
There's something that you had said earlier, I think, which also dovetails just into this. One of the reasons why you are advocating for people to avoid crime scenes is so that they do not also leave pieces of evidence there in such particular cases. It could be ID, it could be fingerprints, it could be fiber from the body, from clothes, anything. So this goes into it. But Inspector Nguka, there's something that happens. Once the first responder or the police come and they find, or even yourselves, once you come and find, for example, fingerprints and all, and you're starting now to invite people for questions to assist police with investigations. In this country, assist police with the investigations is lalandani for a while before CSI determines, oh yes, you actually are not the person we are looking for. So there's also another conversation of, to make sure you don't lalandani for no reason, avoid the crime scene.
Okay, you're bringing in 2 points, but you're trying to dovetail them. But I've been in the service for some time, and the legal space has changed. Nowadays, if you arrest someone, you have to take him to court within 24 hours. So remember,
more time to investigate.
You have to give your reasons. You have to give your reasons before a competent court. Why? you want more time. So, in as much as we don't want people inside the crime scenes, one of the reasons is that we may end up sorting you out and say, okay, you are just there because of your peradventure, your own issues. But then issues like, say, fingerprints, if you superimpose your prints on the actual offender, you see, you have already tampered with the evidence. We should have found the real culprit, but because your fingerprints are on top of him and we cannot see his fingerprints properly, we cannot develop his. We get yours. Now you see, already you have now tampered with the course of justice. So that is why you always it's best advised that just keep off. If you're not saving a life, keep off, and if you are getting into save life, make sure that you have that good reason and you follow the right pathway of saving that life.
These conversations continue on SpiceFM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We are around the country and we are also broadcasting around the world on SpiceFM KE. On Facebook, we live stream the show on Twitter and our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Chief Inspector Arphaxad, Nguka, Forensics Detective from the DCI, and Sarah Nyakio, Assistant Program Officer, Communications and Advocacy at IMLU. Asanteni sana for joining us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.